breaking news from News Channel 3.
And good morning to you. It's 5 o'clock. I'm John Palmentary.
And I'm Joe Butita, and we're following breaking news out of Ventura County.
This started before midnight, and we are here with our full team in the News Channel 3 newsroom on a major fire that broke out in Solimar Beach in Ventura County, north of Highway 33, just after 11 o'clock last night. And we have been on it with frontline crews. And now an aerial shot above this fire that has burned 1,000 acres along our coastline, shutting down Highway 101 in both directions, with a hard closure by Caltrans and the Highway Patrol northbound at Highway 33, southbound at Highway 150 coming out of Carpinteria, and the Union Pacific Railroad system has also shut down all trains in that area. Solimar Beach, the homes there evacuated up to Carpinteria, where a Red Cross evac center has opened up and is now fully staffed as well. And over 500 firefighters have been called out on this day after Christmas to battle this vegetation fire along the Ventura County coastline that you see from the air that has burned in the chaparral along the coastline in drought, dry conditions, and it continues to have a mind of its own in very strong and erratic winds.
So you're seeing the arrows there. You can tell that is where the wind is pushing. It's going to the left of your screen, and the ocean is going to be to the right. That dark area is where the water is at, and the 101 is kind of right along that path. We have crews that are both on the, for a better way of putting it, north and south parts of the fire. News Channel 3 reporter Kelsey Gerkins is on the south end by the 33. CJ Ward is at Solimar Beach on the north side. We're going to begin with Kelsey, find out exactly what's going on and the firefight that's underway. Kelsey?
Joe, right now I am live here on the northbound side. Earlier this morning I was on the southbound side, and we're here in between State Beaches and the main exit. If you look behind me, this is where you can see some active flames, but the wind is a lot calmer here now. Completely different sight than we were seeing earlier today. That is the only active flames in this area, but if you pan a little bit to the left there, you're going to see that is all ash. All the chaparral there is burned out, gone. The PCH sign here is even affected. The winds have calmed down out here. It's a much different scene than we were seeing earlier today. So it's a lot calmer out here. It looks like most of the fire is now back in the deep hillsides. You can see a big glow up in the mountainside. That's where it looks like the fire is, but a big different scene out here than compared to just an hour ago. We're not seeing as much flame activity. It's a lot quieter out here. The fire crews moved along to different areas. Earlier, the fire had jumped the freeway and was on the other side, but that is pretty much out at this point. Just a small glow there. So a lot calmer. Now I'm on the northbound side of the 101 in between the State Beaches and the Main Street exit. Throwing it back to you, John and Joe.
All right, Kelsey Gerkins there on Highway 101, and that's a good sign that the winds have calmed down and maybe they'll have a fighting chance as the air attack kicks in a little bit
Once the sun
after
starts
7
to
o'clock
come up
this morning.
Yeah. We have CJ Ward, who is at Solimar Beach. This is one of the communities that has been evacuated this morning. You see more crews pulling up behind him to try to get there. CJ, from your position, how's it looking out there?
And we are live along the PCH at Solimar Beach Colony, and behind me you can see that it is quite a bit darker than it was the last time we spoke to you. Many of the hot spots they've knocked down. You can see up along the fire trucks up there along that ridge. That is actually Highway 101. They are lined up along there, making sure the flames don't actually jump over. You can see some hot spots up there as well. Winds have calmed down, so the situation here is much better. Take a look up here, though. You can see a flare-up, you might say. A few of them. We have one up high and some of these down low, but that's where a lot of the hand crews, they're up there with chainsaws. They're trying to put out those hot spots. I just had a long discussion with a firefighter who was telling me, a fire official who was telling me in terms of a cause for this fire, and they're saying it's preliminary, very preliminary, but they're saying the winds were so strong up in some of those oil fields, they're looking at the possibility that some power lines were knocked down, and that may have actually sparked this fire. They were also surprised. They said they were very surprised by the strength of the winds. They say very strong northeast winds in this area are rare. They don't see them as strong as what we saw tonight, so that actually surprised them, and this fire moved very quickly. The other thing we learned was, by talking to fire officials, is that PCH at this point will probably be closed until at least noon today, and the Highway 101, the 101 freeway, will probably open up sooner. They said the CHP is usually motivated to try and get the 101 open as soon as possible. So the PCH may be closed until at least noon. Hopefully the 101 freeway will be open sooner than that. Guys, I'm going to throw it back up to you on TV Hill.
CJ, thank you very much. CJ was mentioning the road closures and the impacts that we're having. Of course, this is a travel weekend. A lot of people heading back home or still heading out to see family. And we're following the Waze app, and we're going to take a look right here. This is the area that is affected. You can see the orange dot up by Carpinteria. That's where it is closed near Bates Road at the 150. And then you get down here. This is where Kelsey Gherkins was, in the 33 area. As you zoom in here on our Waze app, this is where it takes you back to Ojai. The fire burning in this area, and it is a complete standstill. There's no way to get through the 101, although CJ said there could be opening within the next several hours, which would certainly be good news. But according to Waze, your only way around, if you're going to do it, if you're going to try to take the 33 to Ojai and then jump on the 150 to make your way back around, if you know the back area, then take the 190 through Santa Barbara if you can get back there. There's a lot of different ways. But it's going to be a slow go this morning if you're trying to make your way north or south.
If you remember when the La Conchita landslide happened, the last one in 2005, that was the option because the freeway was closed with mud and water, and that 150 was the route to go around, or else Highway 5 up to 166 and over to Santa Maria. And what a long haul that one was for commuters. There is the aerial shot up above the Solimar fire, and as our reporters on the ground have shown us, the fire was so active on the freeway on both sides. They were showered with embers with their cameras on the freeway earlier this morning, and had to back out and reposition over and over, but stayed with it to give you the images to show you the dynamics of this fire on both sides of the freeway. And then, as we say, up by Solimar and down by the Emmawood State Beach Tunnel. Now that seems to be calming down, maybe burnt out because there's not a tremendous amount of fuel there. As you see, it's crawling its way, appears to be back towards that corridor towards Ojai, at least that direction, and we'll see what happens with the winds there. But the good news that I saw there was both our reporters were not being blown off the screen as they were most of the night, with some extremely powerful winds, some of the strongest we have seen, and the fire was going just about anywhere it wanted. So with that, what is happening with the winds there, and how much of a fighting chance will the aircraft have when they go up about 7 this morning? For that, we go to our First Alert Weather Center and Alan Rose, who is watching this with pinpoint accuracy. Alan?
Hi, John. Yeah, this is a windstorm like no other. I haven't seen winds like this even in Santa Barbara in many, many years. And the windy setup, I want to start with this and tell you why the winds have been so strong. This is the storm that moved through Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, brought in the colder air mass, so low pressure moves off to the east, high pressure builds in behind it. Whenever you get the two weather systems close to each other, it naturally builds up the winds. It intensifies them as air wants to go from high to low. Of course, there's a Coriolis effect, so things sort of wrap around and move in a slightly different direction. But you see there with the high and low, that would mean that we'd get sort of a north-northeast wind where they're positioned now. We also have a lot of cold air. Whenever you have cold air in the Great Basin, which is this location here, it wants to move towards the coastline. That also fuels the winds. So there's a lot of things working in our favor, and that's why we've seen some very strong and widespread winds and not just a sundowner or Santa Ana effect. Now, we did see some sundowners last night in Santa Barbara. Today, later, we'll see those Santa Ana winds kick up. This is for Ventura County. I'm highlighting the area where the fire is located, again, west of Highway 33 until noon Sunday. So the offshore winds continue. That means it moves from land out to sea. North winds 20 to 30 miles an hour. The gust at time all the way up to 50. Now, the peaks are going to come in the morning hours in that area, a little bit weaker during the afternoon and evening, and then peaking again tomorrow morning. And here's what we've seen so far. Gusts have been in the ballpark of 30 to 40 something miles an hour. Now, keep in mind, there's not a lot of weather data to pull from in this area. It's a fairly isolated spot, and therefore we don't have equipment in those locations. But we've seen some of the reporters on the ground, some of the fire personnel saying that they think winds have been even stronger, maybe 50 or even 60 miles an hour. And based on the video that's coming to the newsroom, I certainly believe it. In Santa Barbara, we've seen peak gusts as high as 58 miles an hour out towards the Botanic Gardens. Now, winds are going to weaken for the south coast, and they'll start to weaken out towards La Conchita, Ventura, the fire area, Ojai as well. But pay attention to this spot right here. This is where the Santa Anas typically crank the hardest, and that is eastern parts of Ventura County. And I just talked to the National Weather Service. They said as the winds start to go from northerly to northeasterly, it's actually a good thing for the fire. We think we'll start to see those winds let up a little bit more as we make our way towards sunrise, and that trend should continue, guys, through at least the first part of the day. So some good news with respect to the winds, but that's not the only challenge. As John mentioned, there's a lot of terrain out there driving the fire. This is definitely a difficult spot, but there's a lot of fire personnel there, and of course the weather still a little bit dicey at times with those winds, but should be improving later today. Send it back to you.
All right, Alan, thanks very much. Now, updating you, we've got new information from the Ventura County Fire Department, the lead agency on battling this fire. It has now grown again to 1,100 acres. And this is an aerial shot over the Solimar Beach fire. And as we have seen, some areas are cooling down, some areas are still aggressive, and all that could change at sunrise as well.
Certainly could. We're going to check in right now with Ventura County Fire and Mike Linberry, Captain Mike Linberry, joining us on the phone. And Captain, we've been following you on Twitter, getting your updates there. What can you tell us as of 5:10 this morning? Where's this fire stand?
Well, I just heard you report 1,100 acres. We're actually officially estimated. This is an official estimate of 1,000 acres right now. As you probably know, we have 500 firefighters either on scene or en route. We expect this fire to be a multiple-day event. Fire that burned this fast and is this large. With the conditions we have now, we're going to have firefighters out there for several days working on getting the line. Where we are right now is we're taking every opportunity as things kind of calm down a little bit on the fire line, get our troops in there and start getting the line cut around this fire in the areas where we can get access to. We've had division supervisors out in the area all night assessing those areas, and so far it sounds like they're able to get in there and get some work done. I did hear one interesting fact. This area hasn't burned since 1970. It's not, obviously next to the ocean like this, it's not an area that will, we normally see a brush fire of this magnitude.
And Captain Linberry, we've been anticipating sunrise for a very specific reason. What do we have staged and ready at Santa Maria and over at Fox Field in the Antelope Valley that can come in and assist all these 500 firefighters on the ground with putting this fire out as fast as possible?
Well, I'm hoping there's some good news here in the fact that these winds are kind of calming down a little bit. As we get our sun coming up, we're going to be able to get some aircraft in the air, and we'll be able to get in there and get some at least retardant lines around this thing. And though the retardant lines may not stop the fire, they can slow it down and give us time to get in there and get that line cut around the fire. So I expect that we'll see that, and it's always very impressive to see those aircraft come in and make those precision drops along the edges of these fires. Those pilots are really wonderful at what they do.
And, sir, is there any update on the 101? We know it is closed from Bates to the 33. Any idea if it may be opening again anytime soon?
I can't guess on that. I don't have an estimate. What I would say is, as you see things calming down in some of those spot fires in between the PCH and the 101, and then along that north edge of the northbound 101, we'll do everything we can to get it mopped up. It'll probably be a progressive opening where we may be able to open one lane that number one or middle lane first, work our way to a fully open freeway, but I can't guess as to when that may commence.
I got to tell you, earlier in our coverage in the middle of the night, we saw some of your fire crews there along PCH, and they realized that with all these embers flying around, some were getting up into the palm trees, almost creating torches there, and they were firing water up in there and trying to stop anything from starting into a fire over by those homes. Looks like there's been a lot of saves, and there could have been some property loss. We have not had structural loss, have we?
No, there have been no structures destroyed, or at least homes destroyed by this fire. As far as the structures involved, up in the oil field area, once we get light on the fire, we'll have a real good idea as to how that area fared as well. It's gone actually real well with regard to that area down there along PCH. I was in touch with one of the captains down there. He was letting me know what was going on, and those palm trees, those palm fronds can fly off. They'll fly in the wind. They can ignite fires downwind. But just those palm trees in themselves are somebody's. They're a crop. They're used for ornamental vegetation. So we want to do everything we can, not just to save structures, but to save any valuable crop, structure, everything that we can.
Well, you've done a great job of that, and we saw that firsthand. We showed some images there while you were talking on TV that came into us, some still photos of the firefighters shooting the water up in the trees and protecting the structures down there. And we have had no structural loss. No one's been hurt in that area. The evacuations went very smoothly, and your Ventura County Fire Department has done an excellent job to save those structures, and a lot of work I know ahead. But that was a great stand down there. We're happy to show that to our viewers this morning.
And Captain Barry, got one final thing for you. We know you got a lot going on. You mentioned the oil field areas. Any clue if those have been impacted at all, or if there's any threat to those? A lot of pumps in that area.
Well, I've been mentioning to most of the folks that I've talked to through this morning is that just like we require homes in the wildland-urban interface area to provide 100 feet of defensible space around their homes, we also require the oil fields to give us the same thing around the structures that they have. They have a number of different types of facilities, compressor plants. They have scrubbers, which scrub out the hazardous gases, and they have tanks up there. And all those facilities have that defensible space around them. So I'm feeling pretty good about most of that area back there. The one big concern is always the underground pipelines, because as you know, we like to use dozers to get lines around these fires. They get a good, effective line cut in fast. So we're working with the oil company, and we're going to make sure that we identify where those pipelines are before we even put any blade on the ground in the area where they could be.
All right, Captain Mike Lindberry, thank you once again for that update. You've been with us all night long, and this is a good report to get grounded with as we start the morning with some daylight shortly in Ventura County on this Saturday morning, and watch that fire attack continue. Hopefully we'll have some good news by midday down there. And thanks once again. We'll be checking in with you throughout the morning.
We're going to continue our live coverage here. News Channel 3 reporter Kelsey Gherkins back joining us. And Kelsey, the winds seem to have really calmed down, although the flames burning behind you are still very bright in the dark of this early morning.
Joe, since I last talked to you, things have changed a little bit out here. It's a lot windier than it was just 15, 20 minutes ago. If you look behind me, the fire is now pushing up the hillside. You can see the embers burning there. They just went through all of that deep brush right there, really thick brush. It's now all in flames, and if you kind of look up, you can see the embers, the little tornado effect in the air there. Those embers are hot, and they're going across the freeway, and this is when firefighters get a little concerned. These embers are big, some of them an inch by inch long, and they can actually cross over on the freeway and get that other chaparral. That's when they get those spot fires. But things are a little bit calmer than they were a good hour or 2 hours ago. All of this brush has burned through. If you look to the left, nothing really left there anymore. It's all just ash. The brush is gone. To the right, that's where the fire, if the wind picks up again, will start burning, because all of that is untouched brush. And as Mike was saying, it has been decades since any of this has had a fire impacting it. Up in the hillsides, that's where we have a deeper fire burning here. It's a big red glow up there. We can't see it from our vantage point, but maybe if you have the chopper overhead, you can see from there just the deep glow, but a lot calmer here along the 101 freeway. Reporting right now on the northbound side of the 101 freeway in between State Beaches and Main Street. Back to you, Joe and John.
Thank you very much. Leo, our director, can you guys take the CBS video from their chopper? It's really going right now. I don't know if we have it routed or not, but we will get it in a second, and because it's a dramatic picture, and you can see the wind blowing where Kelsey was. We have CJ Ward in another spot where it's not blowing at all. So we'll talk to Alan about the combination of wind factors there.
Yeah, some canyons are really aggressively whipped up, and some have calmed down. And there's this other live shot.
And this is, you can see the embers that are burning, and that's got to be a concern as well. If we've seen in the past, winds can carry these embers dozens, if not 100 miles, and light another fire somewhere else. So that's always something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so that's the shot there we have from now a new camera shot, and what we've got there is some coastal chaparral that is so dry from the drought after all these years, and even though we've had a little bit of rain, we've had these strong winds. We're right back down to an extreme fire situation. This burned area is not full of some of the thick stuff, as we say, but it certainly has whipped embers out everywhere. As Joey says, it doesn't take much to spot ahead of this fire, and that's what we've seen. We had one report earlier where we had a live reporter who saw an ember drop down, and 5 minutes later he had a fire right next to him, and he wasn't even near the head of the fire.
Captain Mike Lindberry from Ventura County Fire says this area, the Solimar Beach area and the region, hasn't burned since 1970. So it's a long time coming for a fire like this, and there's a lot of fuel out there to burn.
All right, so let's go now to another side of this. This would be at Solimar Beach, and I believe C.J. Ward is in that area, and he is in an area where the wind has changed. I know over at Kelsey's location, 15 minutes ago it was quiet. Now it's whipped up and there's fire again. C.J., what do you have in your area where the dynamics seem to be changing as well?
Looks like we don't have CJ's mic right now. We're going to go back to him in just a second when we can get him. But again, we're continuing to follow this breaking news in the Solimar Beach area. We want to give you an update. Captain Mike Lindberry just joined us on the phone, and he just tweeted out. He's been great about trying to update us throughout the morning on Twitter. And there will be a media briefing planned for later today at 10 a.m. at the fairgrounds in Ventura County. So that is still a good 4.5 hours from right now. A whole lot can change in that time, but we will have an official media briefing at 10 a.m., and I'm sure we'll talk to him before that as well on the phone.
All right, let's go into our First Alert Weather Center, which has been closely tracking the specifics of this unique weather system that created these pounding winds last night, and that alone was causing problems on our central coast, tearing off some roofs and knocking down trees and power lines, and then the fire started. So for the very latest in this specific area, let's go to Alan Rose, who came in this morning to have our First Alert weather update. Alan?
Hi, John. Yeah, what a windstorm. I mean, I think we have to go back to almost the T or Hasacita fires to remember a windstorm of this magnitude for the South Coast. Winds were really aggressively pounding the area. And it's not just in southern Santa Barbara County, it's to the south, right along the 101 where the Solimar fire is burning. We have our crews on the ground. We'll hear back from CJ in just a minute. But let's take a look at this wind advisory. It lasts until noon Sunday. So it's still got about, 24, 36 hours to go. The strong offshore winds are not done howling in this part of western Ventura County. We'll see north-northeast winds 20 to 30 miles an hour and gust at time up to 50 miles an hour. And so far, the strongest winds have really been in Santa Barbara County, but here around the fire, we've seen some gusts already at or above 40 to 45 miles per hour. Now, as we know, fire can create its own weather, and the other thing to keep in mind is that there's not a lot of active weather stations right where the fire is burning. It's fairly isolated in nature. Not a lot of people live near Solimar Beach, but we have heard from people on the ground, the officials, Gusts could have been maybe in excess of 50, even 60 miles an hour. So what is generating the wind? Well, typically our windy season is more in the fall and more in the spring as we get these systems that sort of skirt through the area. Well, we have this powerhouse area of low pressure move through on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Didn't bring us much rain, but it dropped a lot of cold Arctic air all the way into the southwestern U.S. Building on the heels of that low is high pressure. Now, on the backside of low pressure with the counterclockwise flow, you typically have a sinking air mass. So what we do here is we pull into those strong upper-level jet stream winds, which can be as strong as 120, 130 knots. That's very strong. That could be in excess of 150 miles an hour. So that, combined with the cold air moving from the Great Basin towards the coast and the close proximity of the high to the low, that creates a pressure gradient difference that really accelerates the winds and brings in very widespread and dangerous conditions. And here's a quick look at the Solimar fire forecast. Through today, winds are going to be pretty gusty, but I think overall this afternoon they'll be down a little bit tonight as well, but they will pick back up tomorrow morning. Temperatures today, guys, only staying in the 60s. More on the winds as we stay on air with you. News Channel 3, let's send it back to the guys at the desk.
All right, Alan, thanks very much. And this is a dynamic that we're going to be watching very closely. But as we saw, at times the wind dies down a little bit. And if that happens as the air attack kicks in this morning, that could really give the firefighters a chance to start developing some defensive lines around this. Now, we understand that the American Red Cross and the Red Cross on the Central Coast has activated the Red Cross Center in Carpinteria on Walnut Avenue. And on the line with us, we're going to be talking to Jessica Pifero, who's been up since the middle of the night coordinating all this. And they have opened up that Red Cross shelter for folks who were stranded on the freeway, those evacuated from Solimar Beach. There's so many people that were in motion that were frozen and stopped in Carpinteria.
Yeah.
So, Jessica, what is the Red Cross doing for those folks who can find their way over to Walnut Avenue and see the Red Cross?
Yeah, Red Cross volunteers have been working through the night to set up these shelters, to set up the cots and the blankets, and have snacks and water ready to go for these residents who might be evacuated. So volunteers are there at the shelter ready to provide relief and comfort to families that may be looking at evacuations tonight.
And you know, this can be very upsetting for some of the commuters that come to the area that are essentially stopped or frozen in an unfamiliar place. They have their kids. They were hoping to come and go on their holiday vacation. I'm sure you not only provide the services, you have to provide almost some comfort, maybe some toys for kids, things like that. I mean, is that the setup that comes out of the box essentially when you open up one of your centers?
Absolutely. We definitely take into consideration what these families are going through, that there might be small children. We often have small stuffed animals and toys that we can provide to those kids who are probably facing a disaster that they've never had to face before. Maybe they're in a strange location. They've never had to be in a shelter before. So we definitely take that stuff into consideration, as well as pets. People are often traveling with their pets or have to evacuate with their cats and dogs. We do take those animals into our shelter because we understand those pets are part of the family as well.
Do you need anything from the Carpinteria community? Because if they hear this and you say you need food, beverages, or help for the pets or anything like that, they will come out. The whole city will come out, I can tell you that. What do you need from the folks in Carpinteria to help make this go?
Absolutely. This community has been so generous already. The best way to really help the Red Cross right now is through a financial donation. You could do so by visiting redcross.org, calling 1-800-RED-CROSS, or texting the word Red Cross to 90999. That makes a $10 donation on your cell phone bill. Financial donations are really the best way to help the organization right now.
Yes, and for people that are displaced, for those that don't know, they get vouchers to go out and eat or to stay in a hotel or the like, and that gives them a place of togetherness and security. So, Jessica, thank you so much for the update, and thanks to your volunteers for keeping that Walnut Avenue shelter open and operating all night and for the duration of this fire. From the Red Cross Central California, that's Jessica Pifero joining us.
And we're going to go back to CJ Ward now. We have him, he's on the north side of this fire, the northern half of the 101. CJ, the winds there maybe looks like they're calming down compared to where Kelsey was about 10 minutes ago.
And we're live near the entrance to the Solimar Beach colony area, a bunch of homes along the beach here. And if you look down this way, that is actually southbound PCH. You can see where the firefighters and the sheriffs, they're pretty much blocked off the PCH. The only problems we've had in this area are the hot spots. If you look up on that one ridge, just up over my shoulder there, you can see that is a hot spot that's flared up over the last 10 minutes or so. Firefighters on this ridge right here, this has been a trouble spot for them because this is right underneath a freeway overpass, and they are trying to put out the hot spots there so that doesn't flare up. And then just a little bit around here, more to my left, you'll see another hot spot, and you can tell firefighters are now trying to give that more attention because that has been flaring up over the last 15 minutes or so. I did talk to one firefighter who said, you know, this really is the most dangerous time of a fire because down here the winds died down. Everybody kind of gets calm because it looks like the fire is actually laying down. But up there on those ridge tops, the wind is still howling, and a lot of those hot spots will flare up again. Also, I spoke to a guy who showed up here on a bike, and I said, what are you doing here on a bike? He said he was down here having dinner with his in-laws at a home here in Solimar Beach. He got a call. They went home. About midnight, he got a call saying that the whole place was up in flames. So he knew the freeway was shut down, the 101 was shut down, the PCH was shut down. So he jumped on his bike at Seaward and rode his bike up the PCH. And I said, well, why would you do that? He said, well, I have a boat, and his boat's right here. He said, I have a boat here, and I was afraid the boat was going to burn up because I saw the live pictures on Channel 3, and I thought my boat was going to burn up. His boat's fine, by the way. But a lot of the folks along here, they're very lucky. You know, the homes are fine, but it was a close call. I'm going to throw it back up to you guys.
DJ, what a story, and it just shows how those firefighters defended that colony. And earlier we showed them with their hoses out and their strike teams lined up in front of those homes.
And a boat might be the best way to get north or south for that guy if he's got it way there. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with much more. I also want to point out, CJ's shot, when we saw it, the smoke was going straight up, which is certainly a good sign when you see white smoke and it's not going side to side. Shows that winds are calm in that area. But we're continuing to follow this breaking news, the Solimar Beach fire, when we come back.